everybody. We're here in the Discovery Center at Navajo Nation Zoo, and we are talking a little bit about our rabbit we have here. So this is, the breed is called a Dutch belted rabbit, and this rabbit's unique compared to all the other animals in the zoo. We actually let people come up and touch the animals, and if you, maybe if you would like to illustrate a little bit on the texture of this rabbit.
Oh my gosh. Wow, it's really, really soft.
Yeah, so the children definitely like to get up close and personal to these guys. These guys are not wildlife, but they are domestic, so they're comfortable with us interacting with them. And First Lady, if you want to take a pet. Yeah, so that's one thing that's very unique about these guys. And of course, you know, they're just like any other domestic rabbit. They like their greens, they like their rabbit pellets, and she's actually got a little cage mate. She's actually in the enclosure still, and she's wondering where she's at. Okay, so if I bring you guys over here. So we have over here a Canadian goose, and this Canadian goose is actually has been here for about 11 years. And she's been here for quite a while. So actually she's displaying to you the reason why she's here. And she actually doesn't have her right wing, as you can see. So she was actually injured possibly by a gunshot. And she's been here ever since. Now these guys, you don't normally get to see them on Navajo Nation unless you're around wetland areas. And this girl, she just migrates on through. She's not normally a resident. And as you can hear in the name, Canada Goose, she actually goes all the way up to Canada. So they're definitely, you know, known for a big migratory path that they go, and definitely for that V shape, what's called an echelon. And the echelon is their formation that they form when they're migrating, and it helps kind of, everybody gets to take in on the air drafts, and so they're not expending as much energy. And so next one we have is over here. Now this one's one of our newest animals. So this is a black-crowned night heron. So it's a pretty cool bird, and if you can see, if you can zoom in a little bit on it, it's got that really beautiful dorsal feathers on it. Now this one is not necessarily a native to Navajo Nation. It's mostly a bird that kind of migrates on through, and you're going to find it in wetland regions. And we're actually going to have the opportunity to see one of our zookeepers actually feeding her. Now, out when it's wild, of course, you wouldn't have a zookeeper to feed her. She's normally going to be going out into the, you know, the wading areas. And those wading areas where she's going to pick up crustaceans, she's going to pick up small amphibians like frogs or salamanders. She's also going to be picking up fish, which is what she's doing today. And if you can look right over here, we have our zookeeper, Shane's little stinger, getting ready to feed her. So as you can see her feet right there, her feet are definitely made for going into those wading areas, and she's able to walk very gracefully, as you see, into those wading areas, and she's able to, you know, sneak up on her prey and get to them. Now she also shares an enclosure with some actually pet species of turtle, and they're called the red-eared sliders. Now there's actually 4 in here, and they definitely know how to camouflage themselves for sure. But they all interact very well together. Okay, so we can go down this way over here. We also have our ringtail. Okay, so this is called a ringtail or a ringtail cat, miner's cat. It has a lot of different names. Now, do you, second lady, do you know the state bird, state mammal of Arizona?
No.
You said it right in front of it. So we have the state mammal right here. This is a ringtail cat. Now, as you can see, he's very excited to get his breakfast. And this guy, as the name implies, they're found in mine shafts. They're found in riparian areas where it's wooded, and as you can see, it almost looks very similar to a lemur, but it's actually not related to a lemur. It's actually related to the raccoon family, and it has that characteristic black and white tail. A lot of people think like, oh, what's a lemur doing here? But these guys are native to Arizona and the Southwest. Now, areas that you're going to find these guys is going to be more so southern Arizona, but also canyon areas, such as Canyon de Chelly. So they always kind of are really good at hunting. They like to go after mice and small birds, small mammals. They're what they call omnivores, so they can also eat a wide variety of non-meat products as well. Now, do you guys know any other interesting facts about these guys? Why they're called the miner's cat? No? Okay, so they're called the miner's cat because miners actually used to adopt these guys just like you would a normal house cat, and they would use their excellent sense of smell, sense of hearing. As you can see, she's using those really big ears to really hone in on her treat, and they would use them to control the rodent population in the mines. And I want to present a question to the Navajo people. Does anybody know the Navajo name for ringtail? Because it's a persistent question that we have for any one of our viewers. We'd appreciate it. All right, so we're going to be heading out towards the Bobcat over here. Sorry. Okay. So we have a very nice day today. It's nice and sunny, really great day to come down to the zoo and join the first lady and second lady. And it's also nice to get out, get some fresh air. There's definitely a lot of, wildlife around here. We have some species of birds that are around here. We also have, of course, all of our animals that are here as well. Okay, so we're coming up to this enclosure right here. And now this is kind of going to be a hide and seek kind of game. These guys are so well camouflaged that it's always kind of hard to find them. So we have the Bobcat right over here. Now, I would like to ask you guys, have you guys ever seen these guys out in the wild?
Yes.
Oh, you have? Oh, great. And what location were you able to capture one of these guys, like, seeing them out in the wild?
It was right on Hell Mesa, like
wow.
before Tuba City.
Yeah.
It was they were crossing the road. That's what I saw.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Yeah, these guys are definitely masters of stealth. And Bobcat, they get their name from, you can see their little tails bobbing around back and forth. They get their name from that little tail of theirs. Now, these guys, what they lack in size, they make up in attitude. And these guys definitely are very spunky. They have a lot of energy. They're very opportunistic carnivores. They're called obligate carnivores. Now these guys, a little fun fact about them, is that even though they're small, they can actually jump over 12 feet high. So definitely an opportunity that they'll take should they need to. They also have some really intense claws on their hands. Now that's to use to grasp onto any prey. These guys are found throughout the Navajo Nation. They're found in canyon areas, also woodlands, and even like you mentioned, you might be crossing the road. So watch your roadways as you cross by. All right, let's go ahead and move up. Okay, so we have over here Brennan Key and Sheridan. So Sheridan is actually going to be feeding our Bobcat. So they definitely know their designated areas on where they go to get their food. These guys are getting a a hamburger meal for today, but sometimes we do give them prey such as rabbits or guinea pigs or rats, things like that. Okay. Now we have here the desert bighorn. Now the desert bighorn is one of 3 subspecies in North America. Now there's the desert bighorn, the Sierra Nevada, and also the Rocky Mountain bighorn. Now these guys are the smaller of the group. They definitely have a lot of attitude, and as you can see, what Sheridan is feeding is actually a ewe. So a ewe is the name for a female bighorn sheep. Now if you look up towards the top right there, that is actually our ram. So our ram is about 6 years old, so he's not what they would call a fully mature bighorn ram. At 8 years old, so another 2 more years, he's going to have a full curl of his horns there. Now, unlike our deer and our elk, these guys keep their horns throughout their whole entire life. So they don't drop them, not like any others. And as you can see, the females also sport them, but they're smaller. Now, I'd be interested, do you guys know any Navajo medicine men who have a use for something like this? And what kind of uses did they use it for? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I know they have them, but I don't know what it's.
Oh, okay. So, the medicine men like to use the horns of these guys. Of course, these guys are protected just because they are endangered. There were only a few of them. Now, some of the threats that they face in modern times is besides predation, of course, natural predation, but actually it's going to be from our domestic livestock. So our sheep actually pose a risk because they can actually give them a respiratory infection, and it can be detrimental to these guys. They are definitely, prone to these things. Now remember that domestic sheep are definitely not the same strain. The Bighorn sheep is one of only 2 North American sheep. And the second is actually the Dall sheep, which is actually found up and towards Alaska. Now, these guys are excellent climbers. They're found out towards the San Juan Basin of the Navajo Nation. And these guys are excellent climbers. They can actually stand on a ledge that's only 2 inches, 2 inches wide. Definitely something I would probably not have the balance for. And these guys are, as you can see, they're eating hay. That's for their captive diet. But out in the wild, they would be eating grasses, shrubs, any kind of greenery they can get a hold of. And then in the colder months, they're going to change their diet and move it towards more trees and like junipers and whatnot. All right, so if you guys can follow me this way.
So, the horn of a bighorn sheep, you can carve a tiny little flat shavings off of that. I was pointing at you.
Oh, okay.
So, some people, I don't know if everybody does it, but the Betsy, if you find one, you can, some people shave little tiny flakes off of it into their mountain tobacco. And they're they're Navajo pipes. And you smoke it, and then you go out to your corrals, and that smoke you blow on your livestock, so they'll be healthy and bring wealth. And the skin, the tan skin, is more valuable as for use as shirts than deer skin, tan deer skin.
Thank you, Dr. Shabala. Okay, we're going to be heading over towards the mule deer. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever partaken in any sort of wild game meat, but we definitely like to feed these guys a really good diet. We definitely like to temper them, as one would say. But these guys, we have actually 4 deer in here. The one who's been here the longest has been here for over 10 years. Now in captivity, these guys can live over 20 years easily. Now we actually have one of our youngest that actually came to the zoo during the pandemic, and we'll see if we can spot him on camera over here. It's actually over here. So he's standing right next to the tree. So he is actually a young buck, and he just got his antlers. He actually just dropped his antlers, his very first antlers, and they're anxious to eat over here. Now these guys, I know right now you probably can't see it, but they can run 40 miles per hour. So they definitely have a lot of speed to them. And they are actually the smallest species of deer in North America. Now there are, of course, many different other subspecies, of course being one of them is the whitetail. These guys actually have some of the fastest growing tissue. So if you look at our buck, which is a male deer, he's currently scratching himself. He actually is already starting to grow a new set. Now, a little term test. You guys know the term rut. Have you heard that before? Oh, okay, yes. Great. What is it?
That's why they lose their antlers.
Yeah. So when the rut is during the breeding season.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the breeding season, it usually runs somewhere between about September to December. And then after the rut or the breeding season, the bucks, what they do is they actually drop their antlers, and they drop it every single year. And during that time is when, things start to calm down. The new fawns, come out, and then again, the cycle starts all over again. So these guys pretty much have antlers all year round. And these guys, as you can see, it's not the characteristic white that you would normally see when they have their antlers. He actually has a thin layer of what's called velvet covering over his antlers. And it is what they call in medical terms very vascular. So that means it has a lot of blood supply to it. And like I mentioned earlier, it's actually one of the fastest growing bones in the animal kingdom. And actually, at least for some of the species of animals, it can grow as much as an inch a day. Oh, wow. So it just grows incredibly fast. Okay, we'll leave them to their breakfast over here. Okay, so we have the elusive Mexican gray wolf. Now, they're a little bit hidden right now. they're a little bit camera shy. Now, can you guys see them, first lady, second lady?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the one standing off to the right is going to be Felipe. The one on the left who's trotting off is actually Redford. So we have two males here. They're actually brothers. They came from a Chicago zoo, and they are very, very rare. Now, in the 70s, they were actually almost hunted to the point of extinction. And these guys, there was only about 9 wolves left. So they were about to go completely extinct. But thankfully, due to conservation efforts, they were able to rebound those numbers. And now we have somewhere around 150 out in the wild that are actually out there, making more pups and repopulating the population of wolves. But we have 350 that are in captivity, 2 of which are our 2 wolves right here. So they definitely are a very rare species, and really glad that our future generations are able to see the Mexican gray wolf. Now these guys are the smallest of the North American wolves. These guys can cover a large amount of distance, and they actually have a pretty large territory that they cover as well. They can easily cover 50 miles a day, and even more if they want to, if they have the motivation to. Now, just due to pressures from human encroachment into their habitat, You know, normally these guys would have be going after deer and elk, also even smaller game like coyotes or even like bighorn sheep, things like that. That would be their normal diet, but due to human encroachment, these guys aren't able to get to those areas, and unfortunately it's easier for them to go after livestock rather than going after something that has antlers or horns that can fight off itself. But because of that, these guys were they were hunted, they were poisoned, and thankfully due to conservation efforts, we were able to bring them back from near extinction. Now, do you guys have any questions regarding the Mexican gray wolf?
How long do they live?
They can live up to 20 years in captivity. Of course, out in the wild, their life expectancy is a lot shorter. These guys, their diet today is going to be the same as with the bobcat. It's going to be a special formulation. It's similar to like hamburger, but of course very different from what you would eat out in the wild. And if you can see Redford there, he's actually really excited for his breakfast. He's actually just slobbering away over there. Okay, so we can move on to the mountain lion. Okay. Okay, so now we have the mountain lion, the cougar, the puma. Now this actually set a world record, a Guinness World Record, because they have so many names allotted to them. And they are very, very elusive. And can you guys even see them in this enclosure? Most people come, they think that we're hiding them, but we actually have two. There's a male and a female in here. They're over 10 years old right now. They actually came from Los Alamos area, and they were orphaned. Unfortunately, separated from their mother. They were raised at wildlife rehab, and afterward they were able to come here. So we have Kaba and Hunter is what their names are, and these guys are the fourth largest big cat in the world. So we actually have a little claim to fame, the fourth largest. Don't even see them. These guys are very secretive. They're very elusive. They definitely like to avoid people at all costs, which, you know, it costs them a great deal. And they always try to avoid us. A lot of the time, you might be coming across a mountain lion and you don't even know it, and they're just hiding away from you. Now these guys actually don't have a roar like a characteristic large cat would have. They actually have is similar to a woman's scream when they actually scream is pretty much what it is. These guys are definitely very agile. They can run over 40 miles per hour, so definitely not an animal you don't want to meet out in the wild. Okay. Okay, so we can go around this way over here. Okay, so now we're in the eagle sanctuary. So in here we have 17 golden eagles. Now all of them are injured. They may have wing amputation, toe amputation. We even have one that actually is missing an eye. Okay, we have over here our zookeeper, Terrence Mole, and he's actually going to be giving out their diet for the day.
Good morning. This is your food today. Yesterday was rat day. I was gonna do rats today, but I don't think I'm gonna do it on camera. So this is their lunch.
It's definitely something that requires a strong stomach. Now these guys, they are so many here, and you know, unfortunately, there's quite a demand for housing for these guys, just because there's so many cases of poaching, electrocution, hit by cars. There's so many of these cases that happen, and that's probably the biggest threat to these guys, and that's kind of pushing them towards a more threatened species as opposed to one that's more stable. Now, a little fact about these guys. Any guesses on what the PSI of a hand squeeze is for humans? Okay, so it's around 25 PSI. If you squeeze your hand as hard as you can, it'll be about 25. Well, these guys have this squeezing force of over 2,000. So definitely not one that you want to mess with and try to wrangle away from you. And as we mentioned last week, that these guys are, their feathers are definitely treasured according to, you know, many Native American people, many practices. And Terrence, if you just want to highlight a little bit about the feather application process.
Well, let me first say that we've processed over 2,000 feather application for Navajo people, and I'm glad we hit that mark, and I'm very proud of it. And well, everything that falls here, I pick up every morning. Nice feathers, beautiful feathers every day. So last month they started dropping them, so I picked up a lot of really nice feathers, and again, it's free, the feather application. It's a really good deal. You get nice feathers, and I'm glad we're processing them right away, because I don't like hanging on to feathers that long. I'd rather distribute them out to the Navajo people, because I think they're, you know, it's well deserved.
All right, great. Thank you, Terrence. Now, we can go ahead and head over to the black bear enclosure now.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terrence.
Okay, so nice walk over here to the black bear enclosure. We actually have two black bears. Most people think they're males, but they're actually two females. We have Betsy and Abby. Now, we have, excuse us, sorry. We actually have an elderly bear. Now, in the wild, they would be, maybe about 15 years in the wild, but in captivity, these guys can definitely live over 30. So we have Abby here with us. She's definitely one of our younger bears. She is around 8 years old. And on the further side, we have our elderly bear. She's around, 21 years old. So definitely an age difference for these girls. Now, these guys, they're definitely called black bear, but as you can see, sorry, not the best view of our bear, but as you can see, she's not necessarily black. She's actually a little bit more so like a brown color, and that's just going to be a desert variation, just so that she can blend in with her surroundings. Now these guys out in the wild, they don't normally have a zookeeper give them a tray of food, so they're going to hunt things such as deer and elk, as well as carrion, but majority of their diet is actually fruits and berries, greens, grasses, whatever they can get their hands on. They're what they call an omnivore. So they have a varied diet of food items that they would eat out in the wild. And they're also very opportunistic. When they come across something, they'll go ahead and take it. Okay, we can head over here. So we're heading over towards our oldest bear. Now she has been here, like I mentioned, over 21 years, because she came here as a little bit older cub, and she actually, unfortunately, her mom was hit by a car, and so they actually have, she actually has a brother at the Prescott Zoo, and he's actually a lot larger. Would you believe it? Now these guys, the males, can actually reach up to 500 pounds, which is pretty large amount. These guys are definitely strong. Not to mention that they're also very fast. They can run easily over 30 miles per hour. Now we have Betsy right here. Now she is she's a black bear, but she also definitely likes her morning breakfast. I would like to ask a question, First Lady. What's one of your favorite animals here at the zoo so far?
I would say probably, it used to be the porcupines, but now I would say probably the raccoons.
Oh, the raccoons.
Yes.
And how did you guys enjoy your opportunity to feed them last week?
That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Maybe one day we'll have you guys as junior zookeepers.
Just instead of off here.
Yeah, maybe not here. Now these guys, like I mentioned, they're extremely strong, they're extremely fast. For the most part though, they like to be very chill. They don't necessarily want to always be on the extreme of matters. They want to, normally just get whatever they can. Like I said, even grasses would be sufficient for them. Now, what do bears do in the wintertime? Hibernate. Yeah, so they are one of few species in North America that do hibernate. Now, out in the wild, they would go into a full, what's called a stupor. Their metabolism goes down, their body temp, their regulatory system just slows down. But these guys, because, we're zookeepers, we're able to keep on feeding them, they don't necessarily go into a full hibernation. So even if you come during the wintertime, sometimes they'll be walking around and, kind of in a little bit of a bedhead, a little bit of a sleep daze. All right, let's go ahead and head on over to the coyote. Now, I'm sure that everyone is aware that the coyote is one that has been in so many Navajo traditional stories. Now, we have two coyotes in here. We have down at that end is Cody. He's one of our younger coyotes. And then we have Lucky Sophia hiding behind that rock over there. Now these guys out in the wild, they're normally pretty much everywhere. Dispersed all the way across North America, South America, and all the way up into Canada. They have a pretty wide range. They're very successful predators. They are omnivores, so they're not strict carnivores. They pretty much go after whatever they can get their hands on. They are definitely sneaky little guys. They're definitely very, very smart. They know how to work out how to adapt to humans moving into their habitat. And actually, there is actually some coyotes that actually live in cities, and most people don't even know about it. Now these guys, little known fact is that they are actually really good at controlling the vermin population. So during outbreaks such as, say for instance, hantavirus, these guys are really good about controlling those populations so they're down to a more healthy level. As with nature, there's always a balance, and coyotes definitely help create that balance out in nature. So we're gonna go ahead and see our zookeeper, Brennan, actually doing a training session with one of our coyotes. Now, Cody actually has an unfortunate story. He actually was caught in a snare, and if you notice that he actually looks like he's limping, it's actually that he's missing this portion of his paw. So from right here, these fingers right here, so he's actually missing that portion of his paw. So he actually limps around when he's getting around, but he adapts very well to ambulating. He's a lot more active than our female, who has, of course, no kind of amputations of that sort. Okay, so we can go ahead and head on down. Now, I would like to, this is probably a little bit past my time, but I'm wondering if you guys remember, there used to be an animal that was down here many years ago. Any guesses? Buffalo? No, unfortunately, maybe one day we will have a buffalo. So when I was a very young child, I definitely remember that in this location over here, we used to have, or they used to have like a badger. So definitely a species that was definitely a handful to contain. They're definitely very smart, and they're also extremely good diggers. And their relative, the honey badger, which is out towards Africa, actually can actually open enclosures itself, and it knows how to open latches, and they're definitely very mischievous creatures. Okay, so we're coming up to our elk. He is a bull elk. His name is Boomer, and he came here as a young calf. Let's see, about 3-4 years ago, and Boomer is going to present to us. As you can see, he has dropped his antlers that he grew last year, and he's growing a new set. Every single year it just gets bigger and bigger. He's also going to be getting bigger and bigger. Right now he weighs about 700 pounds. Out in the wild they can easily go over 800 pounds, and and larger, of course. Now these guys actually have a really heavy antlers once it gets to full size, and it can definitely weigh over 30 pounds alone. So you can imagine the muscle strength it is to try to carry that big mass around on your head. Now these guys are actually the largest of the deer species in North America. Currently right now he's actually losing his winter coat, trading it in for a nice summer coat. And do you guys know anything about their digestive system? Nothing? Okay. Now these guys, of course, they are herbivores, but they are called ruminants. Do you know that another animal that is also a ruminant? A goat, a sheep. Yeah, a goat, a sheep, the cows. So they are what they call a four-chambered stomach. So that is what separates us mammals from these guys, where they're able to digest plant matter, and they're able to digest it due to the fact that they have a four-chambered stomach that actually allows it to break down the food so that they can turn it into energy. Okay. Now, I don't know if you guys were able to meet Boomer when he came. I was talking a little bit about his backstory. So he came about 3 to 4 years ago. He was actually found by a hiker out on the Tresca Mountains, and he must have been recently born, because he was a very young calf, and the hiker noticed that he had a broken back leg. Now if Boomer follows over here, you can actually see that his back leg is just a little bit off, and that's just because of his leg break that he had when he was a young calf. Now this very determined person actually carried Boomer all of over 100 pounds as a calf, carried him all the way down the mountain and all the way to a wildlife rehab where he was raised, and then of course from there he was able to come here to Navajo Nation Zoo. Okay, so our zookeeper Brendan Key is going to be feeding him soon. So his diet out in captivity would be hay, and you actually see in this little modified feeder that he has here that he has alfalfa hay in there, and then he also has some nice yummy grain for himself. All right, we can go ahead and move on. How are you guys enjoying your tour so far? Okay, so now we're heading on to the great horned owl. Now the great horned owl is one of the largest owls in North America, and they get their name from the little tufts of feathers. They don't actually have horns. Some people may think so, but you know, they don't have horns. They actually have feathers that actually stick up when they're excited. Could be from curiosity, could be maybe they see a prey that they want to go after, or it could be also fear. Now these guys, we have two in here. These guys are definitely revered in Navajo culture, as I'm sure most of our viewers are aware of. They also have injuries. These ones are injured, and unfortunately these guys were injured because normally out in the wild, when they're flying down low going after their prey like a mouse or some sort of small rodent, they actually run into barbed wire. And when they run into barbed wire, as I'm sure our viewers are aware as well, is that it has a whole host of microorganisms that live on it. Could be bacteria, could be tetanus, and as soon as they run into that barbed wire, it just gives them all those kinds of infections. And unfortunately, the two that we have here actually no longer have their wing due to the fact that they ran into that barbed wire and we weren't able to save it. Now, one of the characteristics about owls is they actually have lopsided ears. So they actually don't have ears like us, what's called external pinna. These guys have what's called internal ears, and it's actually hidden underneath their feathers right there. But they actually have a lopsided version of that. And that actually is due to the fact that when they're listening around for prey, they're actually able to pick up on different frequencies a lot better than if they were more so symmetrical. Now, as you can see that they have these really large eyes, and that's their main means of hunting. That actually makes up over half of their head. So if you can imagine your eye sockets just being like this big, then definitely you'd be able to see a whole lot more. These guys have really excellent vision. They can zoom in on items that are miles and miles away, and they're also able to hear it as well. Not only that, but they actually have another means of getting their food really great, is they actually have little serrated edges on their feathers. And if you zoom in on this message right here on the board, you actually see a photo of that. Now that's the edges of their feathers right there, and it's actually like looks like little eyelashes. And what it does is that it breaks up the air currents as they're flying, and so instead of hearing the characteristic poof, poof, as they're flying, when they're flying you can hear nothing. It completely breaks down that sound barrier, and you can't even hear when an owl's flying up to you. They definitely would be a silent killer. Okay, we have the next one over here, which would normally have our porcupine in here. Her name was Barb. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, we lost her from old age. So she's definitely an animal we're going to miss very dearly. Okay, now we're heading over to the fox enclosure. Now, First Lady, have you ever seen a fox out in the wild at all?
No, I don't think so.
No?
No.
Yeah, they're definitely very hidden. A lot of the time you might just see like a small little glimpse of them and not see a whole lot of the animal. They definitely are very secretive, but they're also what they call nocturnal. Now, as we're coming up to the red fox, I can go ahead and tell you a little bit about them. So we have 3 red fox. One of them is actually over 12 years old, and he is actually up towards Utah. Now the other 2, they're more local. Now when we get over to the enclosure, I'd like you guys to note a little difference between some of the colorations between them. I mentioned one's from Utah, and then the other ones are from Navajo Nation. Now these guys have a very characteristic trait about them, and they actually have vertical pupils. They look very similar to a cat, and in fact, they are very, you know, dainty and also very light on their feet, just like a cat would be. Okay, so we are coming up to the enclosure. Ooh, careful. Okay, so if you guys could take a look at these two right here, which would be your guess on the one that is from Utah?
The darker one?
The darker one, yeah. So the darker red fox is actually from Utah, and that's just because of the change in environment. Now here out in Navajo Nation, it's mostly a lot of earth tones, definitely like, you know, there's sagebrush, but for the most part the colors are very dulled down, and so these guys use that coloration for camouflage. Now the one who is from Utah is a lot more of a characteristic red color to him, and that's because where he's from there's more greenery, a lot less earth tones around that he has to blend in with. Okay, and so what they're getting today is actually a mix of dog food, some peanuts, but of course out in the wild they're opportunistic, they're omnivores, so they go after rats, mice, other small mammals, but they also go after, you know, even fish. They also go after insects, and then also they go, you know, they eat berries, they eat grasses. They have a very extremely diverse diet. Okay, we can head on over to the gray fox. Okay, now the gray fox is one of the smallest foxes in North America. These guys, as you can see, are climbers. They like to go up high. They're normally found in canyon areas. They're found in areas such as like Canyon de Chelly, and you know, more mountainous areas as well, such like the Cheskas, for instance. So these guys are very good climbers. So a fact about them is actually they are the only family of the Canidae, or the canine family, that can actually climb trees. So these guys actually have claws that can grab onto tree bark, and they're actually able to run up trees to get away from a predator, or you know, go after prey items. Okay, we can move on down. Now, you see this area over here to the side, we actually have the new growth of our pollinator garden. So as I'm sure many of our viewers are aware, that our pollinators are at risk. So if I can ask you guys a question again, what are some examples of some pollinators that you guys can think of?
Like certain flowers?
Well, the ones that go...
the animals.
Yeah, yeah.
The bees.
Yeah, bees, yeah, exactly.
Butterflies?
Bees, butterflies, yeah. And we actually have a photo right here. Bees, butterflies, some hummingbirds, also some species of insects. Now these guys are at risk right now, and that's just because of invasive species. Also, right now Navajo Nation is dealing with drought. Now, as I'm sure you guys are aware, that we need pollinators extremely bad in order for us to have anything. Without bees, we're not able to have our corn, we're not able to have our squash, anything like that. So we have a pollinator garden set out as a buffet for our pollinator species that come on through. Now, some of the ones that aren't here right now are going to be our hummingbirds. Now, hummingbirds actually come all the way from Mexico. They're currently in Mexico right now, and they're going to be coming on up. And as they come on up, they're going to be moving on north. Now, as they're going through, they're going to be pollinating the different plants that we have around here. And so they have a very critical job ahead of them. So, you know, whenever given a chance, set out the hummingbird feeder, set out a nice garden for them so to help them along their way. All right, thank you. Okay, now we are coming up to our ground bird enclosure. Now, and in this enclosure, we have a Mod Podge of different species. So first of all, we have our lovely Tushy, or our turkey, and he's actually presenting for us. He actually lost some of his feathers, but he's strutting what he's got. So he molted them out. So a little bit about our turkey. He's been here for some years now. Him and his lady friend right there. We have a hen as well, and they are here as as a means of educating people, getting them a little bit closer to a turkey. Now these guys are definitely marked for their assertiveness out in the wild, as you can see. He doesn't take any nonsense. Now these guys are revered for their feathers, but also their beard, as you can see, which is the little tuft of hair you see on his chest right there. And those are used for different kinds of ceremonies. Now I want to bring your attention to the back of the enclosure. So the back of the enclosure is actually a new addition to this enclosure here, and that is a turkey vulture. Have you guys ever seen a turkey vulture around? No? So these guys, when they're flying over in the sky, you just see a black bird, a very large black bird. Now the wingspan on this one can be as large as 6 feet. It's a very small bird, but it has a very large wingspan. These guys are, being vultures, they eat just what is called carrion, or what is dead animals. So they're pretty much the cleanup crew for nature. So they have, you can notice that they have a nice striking red bald head. Now, any guesses as to why they're bald compared to an eagle or a hawk or any other of those birds? Okay.
They're scavengers?
Because they're scavengers, yeah. They go after dead things. And dead things, they don't necessarily smell good. They don't necessarily are clean, right? So with bald head, it eliminates any kind of bacteria or any kind of diseases that could get onto their fur. So it's almost like a little bib that they have on their head. So that's why they have a nice striking red head. Now, when you see a juvenile, they're actually kind of more so like a grayish blue color. Now this one's a fully mature turkey vulture. These guys don't go after live animals. They just go after dead ones, and a lot of the time you'll see them in large groups. They'll be hovering in the sky in big old circles. That's one of their characteristics when they find prey. These guys currently, they're starting to come back, but they normally migrate on through during the winter months. Now this one is, we had to actually make modified housing for him because he's not necessarily a snowbird. So he actually had a modified house, but now that it's warming up, we're able to put on exhibit. Okay, now I want to bring you down to the ground over here. Now if you can see this gray bird right here, that is actually a sandhill crane. And any guesses on how old she is?
20?
Yeah, no, that's a good guess. She's actually 31 years old. So some of our zookeepers are actually not even that old yet. So she's actually older than some of the zookeepers here. And she has been here since 1990, and she may be older. We don't really have records as to whether she was a young chick or if she was a full adult at that time. So all we know is that she's over 31 years old. So she's definitely a long-standing resident here. And this species of bird, you're going to find them along water. You're going to find them wading in the sides of the water. They're not necessarily going to be diving in. They also normally go after amphibians, such as like frogs or salamanders or toads that are going to be in that area. They also go after crustaceans. They also go after fish, little fish that are swimming around. So they use that piercing beak to grab them out of the water and pull them on out. Okay, we can head on over. Now we have an exotic animal in here, which I currently do not spy. Oh, she's hidden over there in the corner. She's actually a peahen, and I'm sure most people know what a peacock is, with the very striking colors. Obviously not native to Navajo, but she was actually just found wandering around in St. Michael's. So we don't know where she came from, but she's a resident. She's a little bit shy. She just kind of hangs out in that corner over there. She's not as beautiful as a male. Obviously, if we ever get the chance, we might get a male to walk around here and strut his stuff for us. Okay. All right. Next, we are heading to the Redtail, or the Hawk Enclosure, I should say, because there actually is a multitude of species that are in just this one enclosure. So we have our zookeeper, Brennan, again. He's going to be feeding out what we call bird of prey diet. It's a specialated formula made for birds of prey or raptors. And we have in here 5 redtails, 2 Swainsons. So if you can point the camera towards the treetop right there, there's actually one that's closer towards the camera. That's actually a Swainson. And the Swainsons, oh, there we go, splashing his tail. So he doesn't have a red tail as our redtail hawks have. So it's kind of more like a darker shade of color. And then we also have hidden in here our ferruginous, which is the animal that was highlighted last week. And the ferruginous is definitely a highlight to this group, because it's actually a bird that normally flies on through Navajo Nation, and they can actually travel all the way down to Chile and go all the way up to Alaska. So they can cover a very large distance. Now our redtails, they hang around year-round. They aren't a bird that migrates on through, and they're very opportunistic. They like to go after small rodents, rabbits, even other birds if they get the opportunity. They definitely are very healthy species. They're definitely not threatened, unlike any of the other animals that are here.
Do you also feed them that diet too, the rabbits and the...
We normally feed them like rats and quail. That way it just helps maintain their healthy system, because there's a lot of vitamins and minerals that you get from whole prey diet as opposed to just the meat diets.
And that's what he set out here?
Yeah, just the meat diets, yeah. We do medicate them, so they have beneficial vitamins and minerals in there. Okay, next enclosure and last enclosure we have is our raccoon enclosure, and you guys got to meet these guys last week. So we have 3 in here. These guys are there we go. So they're obviously very curious, very, very friendly, but they are kind of have that little hunched posture as they walk around, and that's normal for them. They're normally kind of walking around like that. Now I kind of touched on a little bit of this last week, but their main sense of that they rely on is actually their sense of feel. So as you can see, he's going to be feeling around before he even touches any of that food, or even eats any of that food. There he goes. And they're very, they have a very prehensile hands. They like to, manipulate their food around. And they're going to be getting a very similar diet to last week, which is going to be the dog food, the grapes, which is their kryptonite. They just love grapes, as well as some of their dog food. And that's going to be put into one of their enrichment toys, so they can forage around and look around for their food. All right. Well, as we come to the end of this tour, do you guys have any comments you guys want to make?
No, thank you for taking us on this tour.
Okay,
I
great.
do have a question that probably a lot of the parents or even the kids is, they see a lot of the in recognition of, or in honor of, or donated by. Can you explain some of them?
Oh, yeah. So what she's talking about are these little plaques that are in front of every single enclosure. And if you ever have any questions as to, like, how many animals are in here, there's actually names of every single animal in here. So we have Chewy, Rocket, and James. Now these guys are adopted, not an animal that you would normally like adopt and take home, but you can for $150 a year adopt these animals, and it'll help offset some of the cost of their food. You'll also be getting a photo, a letter of recognition, an appreciation, I should say, for adopting these animals. And also, you're going to be getting a nice plaque in front. Now, some people like to make little, you know, they'll put their name or in recognition of. And for instance, last week, there was Hornet, one of our eagles, and actually was adopted by Ganado Middle School, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, something to put out there for, you know, community to recognize. Did that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay, great.
Could you also touch on any other type of volunteering opportunities that people might have here?
Oh, yeah. So we definitely appreciate people who want to volunteer. Currently, right now, we are not accepting volunteers, and that's just due to restrictions from COVID. But pre-COVID, we definitely were accepting volunteers 18 and over. You do have to fill out what's a normal Navajo Nation application, and that's just to get your pertinent information. Okay? You guys have any more questions?
Is that going to open up anytime soon for the volunteers?
I guess I can ask the First Lady that. do you foresee us opening up at any time? Because we're going by the President and Vice President's decrees.
Yeah, the guidelines. Yeah, but yeah, thank you for going on the zoo tour with all of us here this morning. There's a lot of other projects that are going on simultaneously, and we'll bring you back here as they move along. One of those things is the beautification project, and then our garden that we'll be doing this summer here. But we'll keep you all tuned and give you those recordings as in the later months. Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed today. It was very informing. You know, I think Miss Stephanie here knows a lot about the animals and what they eat and what they go through and what's happened with them. And so we're just happy to be here today, and you know, we hope we brought you some enjoyment today. And you know, we're hoping that you know the kids are gathered, and so you know, we can't wait until we fully open up, and then when they do, continue to wear your mask. Yeah.